Hello, my name is Annie Williams, and I'm here to talk about striking a balance, how altering economic growth can provide social and environmental sustainability. In 1965, the Bronx Zoo unveiled an exhibit featuring the most dangerous animal in the world. Upon walking up to the exhibit, a human would see their own reflection glaring back at them. Why are humans the most dangerous animals in the world, you might ask? For one, our actions have resulted in environmental degradation, as humans' effect on the earth is witnessed through global warming, which has resulted in increased and intensified droughts, hurricanes, and the rise of sea levels. For two, our cultural systems have spawned social inequity, as one person in nine does not have enough to eat, one in four lives on less than $3 a day, and in the United States, three men, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett, hold more wealth than the total wealth of the poorest half of Americans. How are social inequity and environmental degradation linked? The answer is us. Humans are the problem. Through our policies of economic growth, facilitated by market-based systems while removing government intervention, we have created a system of income inequality which has run rampant throughout the world. As a result, developed nations of the Northern Hemisphere continue to pillage those of the South, leaving poverty, gender inequality, hunger, and environmental destruction in its wake. Should nothing change, our trajectory for global warming will continue unabated, which could result in the annihilation of our own existence. While we are the problem, we also have the potential to be the solution, altering economic growth either by slowing it or stopping it. This approach could effectively serve as a silver bullet, delivering both social and environmental sustainability. This presentation will discuss the works of the following authors: Herman Daly, Vincent Leahy, Anitra Nelson, Kate Raworth, Natasha Chassain, and Ian Goh, to explain why our current economic system must change to embrace alternative rates of growth, as well as outline the institutional changes necessary to usher in such a change. Instead of economic growth, Chassain, Daly, Legan, Nelson, and Raworth argue that to provide for the needs of both mankind and Earth, a balance between human natures is the key to sustainable development. Just like a seesaw, if too much pressure is put on one side, say the environment, then the other side will be thrown off balance, say human life, as environmental patterns such as global warming will threaten humans' existence. Similarly, if too much pressure is put on human life, for instance, people cannot get the resources they need for survival, then the other side, the environment, is thrown off balance, as people take resources from the environment for subsistence. The sweet spot is in the middle, where there is a balance on both sides. For instance, Daly maintains that current economic growth patterns have disrupted the balance between mankind and nature, as the marginal costs of economic growth have exceeded the marginal benefits. That is, the benefit derived from excess production is not equivalent to the environmental cost of doing so. Thus, the seesaw is out of balance. Similarly, Raworth notes that current patterns of economic growth have resulted in humans living outside of planetary boundaries while also neglecting the needs of all people. Again, the seesaw is out of balance. Similarly, Chassain notes that current economic policies, which emphasize the well-being of the individual instead of the collective, have resulted in social inequity and environmental degradation, contributing to an imbalance. While not related to the balance between the environment and mankind specifically, Go illustrates how the imbalance between the wealthy and the disadvantaged have resulted in the inequitable distribution of resources. Thus, to support sustainable development, a balance between the wealthy and the disadvantaged should be pursued in which resources are equitably distributed. Doing so can balance the seesaw. While this week's authors share the aforementioned similarities, the degree to which economic growth should change to get the seesaw between mankind and nature in balance is a point of difference. What kind of growth do we need to get the seesaw in balance? Raworth argues for a donut economic model. If you take a look, you will see on the outer ring of the donut are our planetary boundaries, and the inner circle of the donut are our social foundations. Currently, we are far beyond the boundaries on both sides. Too many people are living in poverty. Too many people do not have enough to eat, are not in school, nor have jobs. We are shortfalling on our social foundations. Simultaneously, we are overshooting our planetary boundaries as we have air pollution, ozone depletion, biodiversity loss, and ocean acidification. According to Raworth, we need to get to the middle, where there's a balance between strong social foundations, in which the needs of all people are met, while ecological limits are respected. So what type of economic growth can achieve such an outcome? Daly believes that a slow growth or steady state economy is optimal to achieve sustainable development, as such a system has the potential to bring marginal costs and marginal benefits to equilibrium. Raworth makes a case that growth is not indefinite. Thus, similar to a steady state, economic growth should be achieved and then maintained. However, Raworth differs from Daly by arguing for growth agnosticism. That is, the focus should not be on growth particularly, but rather the well-being of all people. Similarly, to achieve sustainable development, Chastain argues that the needs of the collective should be put first. Those more radical than Daly, Raworth, and Chastain, such as Leahy and Nelson, believe that degrowth, or stopping all economic growth, is necessary to support sustainable development. In my opinion, while the effects of degrowth are appealing, I fear that stopping all economic growth could have negative implications and can make the seesaw come off balance. For instance, as a reflection of systems theory, The United States consumption of products is dependent on developing nations' production, and developing nations' economies are dependent on American consumption. By adopting a degrowth model, the burgeoning economies that rely on American consumption of the goods they produce could be negatively affected, as consumer demand for their products would decrease. Without proper systems in place to support such an economic change, the people in these economies could suffer, and the seesaw would tip. Thus, while I believe that degrowth would benefit the environment and social equity, I think the negative ramifications from adopting such a movement would overshadow the positives, at least currently. Therefore, I believe a slow growth economy is optimal. By slowing our economy, the seesaw can stay in balance, addressing the needs of mankind without overtaxing the environment. Unfortunately, despite the merits of slow growth, growth agnosticism, and degrowth, the current Sustainable Development Goals, the goals outlined by the United Nations to achieve sustainable development, promote endless economic growth. As such, they are misaligned with achieving sustainable development. To promote sustainable development, the Sustainable Development Goals should be reevaluated to support a steady state economy. However, to do this, fundamental changes to our political, social, and financial institutions are needed. For instance, financially, to reduce the emphasis of growth, demurrage policies should be adopted in which there is a fee for holding money. Politically, there should be taxes on the accumulation of wealth, and socially, a culture that embraces the mindset of sufficiency instead of abundance needs to be cultivated. Thus, the Sustainable Development Goals should be revised to incorporate such political, economic, and social aspects. Doing so could diminish the effects of growth and support a slow growth economy. While changing such institutions may seem daunting, a simple solution may be to report the true cost of products and services, as the environmental and social costs of production are not calculated in the final prices of goods and services. By incorporating external costs of goods and services in the final price, consumers' consumption may decrease, thus inadvertently contributing to a decline in economic growth and resulting in positive implications for sustainable development. If we continue to be the problem, we risk our and our future generations' livelihoods. So next time you look into the mirror, make it a point to be part of the solution by reducing your consumption to slow economic growth, thus bringing the seesaw between mankind and the environment into balance. Your children and your children's children and their children are depending on you to do so.